Hello everybody and welcome to today's video on Romeo and Juliet, analysing the character of Mercutio. As one of Romeo's friends, Mercutio doesn't belong to the Capulet or the Montague families. We learn after his death that he was related to both the Prince, thy kinsman, brave Mercutio, Act 3, Scene 1, and Paris, Mercutio's kinsman, noble County Paris, Act 5, Scene 3. Despite his significant lineage, Mercutio often functions as little more than Romeo's comic sidekick, in much the same role as the nurse for Juliet. Just like the nurse, a lot of Mercutio's dialogue revolves around sexual innuendo and bawdy humour. The audience first meets Mercutio in Act 1 Scene 4, where his innuendo-ridden words remind them of the bawdy humour of Samson and Gregory in the play's opening scene. Samson and Gregory never appear again after the opening scene, and Shakespeare uses Mercutio to continue what they established, a view of masculinity as being a mixture of aggression and overt sexualization. Mercutio often twists Romeo's words into a sexual pun. Romeo, is love a tender thing? It is too rough, too rude, too boisterous, and it pricks like thorn. Mercutio, if love be rough with you, be rough with love. Prick love for pricking, and you beat love down. Romeo's romantic view of love causes him to moan, under love's heavy burden do I sink. Mercutio, on the other hand, offers a much more sexual view of love. When Mercutio answers Romeo for telling him to prick love for pricking, he's punning on the word prick, a slang term for penis. Two distinct views of love are presented here, romantic on the one hand and purely sexual on the other. As well as being overtly sexual, Mercutio, like Tybalt, is prone to aggressive outbursts, and again this mirrors what we learned from the play's opening scene, in which the Capulets and Montagues fight in the streets. While Mercutio is presented as aggressive and sex-obsessed, he can also be seen as a foil to Romeo. A foil is a character who contrasts with another character, usually the protagonist, to highlight qualities of that other character. Although Romeo eventually gives way to aggression in the murder of Tybalt, for the most part he's presented as the exact opposite of Mercutio. Shakespeare uses Mercutio to emphasise the character traits of Romeo, and again we can say the same about the nurse and Juliet. Mercutio's long-winded speech about Queen Mab may initially seem to be unimportant, but it reveals a lot about his character, and this will prove important further into the play. The Queen Mab speech starts off like a child's fairy tale, with innocent images like a chariot made of an empty hazelnut. This story begins with light-hearted, fairy tale-like humour. However, as the tale unfolds, the images get more and more sinister, moving from lovers' brains to soldiers cutting foreign throats and finishing with maids being taught how to have sex. There is a frenzied chaos to the speech, and the shift from playful to sinister imagery symbolises the turmoil and chaos that is so key to the character of Mercutio. Put simply, this speech warns us that Mercutio is more than just comic relief, he is trouble. In Act 3, Scene 1, Shakespeare uses a mixture of blank verse, prose, and rhymed verse to convey meaning. Blank verse is iambic pentameter that does not rhyme. It has lines of 10 syllables with alternating unstressed and stressed syllables. In your copy of the play, blank verse looks like poetry written out on the page. Prose is ordinary written language. There's no rhyme scheme or specific metrical structure. Usually, prose is given to characters of low social status or those engaged in comic scenes. In your copy of the play, prose looks like ordinary written sentences and paragraphs. Rhymed verse is, unsurprisingly, lines of verse which rhyme. It might be an iambic pentameter or it might be another rhyme scheme. Shakespeare also used rhyming couplets, two lines that rhyme, often in iambic pentameter, to signal the end of a scene. Again, it looks like poetry on the page. In Act 3, Scene 1, Benvolio speaks in blank verse. I pray thee, good Mercutio, let's retire. The day is hot, the couples are abroad. And if we meet, we shall not scape a brawl. For now, these hot days is the mad blood stirring. These lines are ordered and tightly controlled, a reflection of the character of Benvolio, who is the same. The blank verse reflects his upper-class status. Mercutio, on the other hand, replies in prose. Thou? Why, thou wilt quarrel with a man that hath a hair more or a hair less in his beard than thou hast. Thou wilt quarrel with a man for cracking nuts, having no other reason but because thou hast hazel eyes. Now Mercutio is an upper-class character, but the use of prose here is not out of the ordinary because this is a comic moment. Mercutio is essentially winding Benvolio up, describing him in a way that is so clearly inaccurate. However, Mercutio also speaks in prose when arguing with Tybalt. Good king of cats, nothing but one of your 9 lives that I mean to make bold withal, and as you shall use me hereafter, dry beat the rest of the 8. Will you pluck your sword out of his pitcher by the ears? Make haste, lest mine be about your ears ere it be out. This is not a comic scene. So why does Shakespeare present Mercutio's lines in prose? The lines are uncontrolled and follow no rules or regulations. We can say that Shakespeare is using prose to mirror Mercutio's character. Just like prose, he is uncontrolled and follows no rules or regulations. Once Mercutio is slain, Romeo calls his friend a gentleman, the prince's near ally, my very friend. This tricolon, group of 3, of compliments demonstrates the high esteem in which Romeo held Mercutio. The inclusion of Mercutio's relationship to the prince was incredibly important in society in the late 16th century because royalty was seen as divine. The possessive my adds a sense of sentimentality to Romeo's sorrow. This is then followed by his own self-blame where he points to his effeminate character, now he loves Juliet, as the reason for Mercutio's death. Mercutio's early exit from the play is also worthy of analysis. Mercutio leaves the play in Act 3 and the nurse exits in Act 4. The 2 comic sidekicks disappear. With Mercutio's death, tragic elements of the play build to the eventual deaths of Romeo and Juliet. Shakespeare removes the jokers because the time for joking has gone. A key quote from Mercutio might highlight his use of humour and sexual imagery, prickler for pricking. This allows a direct comparison to be made with Shakespeare's presentation of Romeo as more romantic. If you found this video useful, please do give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Everything I go through in the video can be found in the new 3rd edition of my Romeo and Juliet guide, which is linked in the description.